others have one. So I'm a mother of 3 adult children, some young adults, maybe one not so young, 28, 25, and 21. So we are navigating this space together. Please allow me share my screen, even as I share a few thoughts that I think I've learned over the years, so that we see what we can learn from each other. Oh dear, I need to, sometimes this technology is very interesting. Give me a moment, even as I open up the presentation. Somebody said I look 21. I'm a mother of a 21-year-old. Do you see my screen?
Yes, we do, Doctor.
Okay. All right. Let's get back to our presentation as we walk through this very quickly. I thought I would start by just sharing a few tips of parenting young children, adult children generally. We find ourselves in this space, most of us who are here, if we are parenting adult children, again, unlearning certain things and relearning new things. We parented them when they were babies, and then they went to kindergarten, and we went through the stage of do this because I said so. Then we adjusted somewhere in higher primary, we adjusted in secondary school where we're parenting from relationship. And here we are, we continue to parent in relationship, but with evolving and shifting roles. So one of the things to remember when you're parenting an adult child, and I want to tell you that I'm a learner. I'm really, really still learning and shifting in this role. It's not easy, but we need to remember that this is an adult to adult relationship. It's an adult to adult relationship, yet it's across generations. So sometimes as parents, we will struggle on how to see the babies we carried as adults with us. So that's why we need to pay attention to how our role as parents is shifting. What was your role when they were in kindergarten, when they were in primary, when they were in secondary? Now some of them are at university, and some are living with us and some are not living with us. How is this role shifting amidst all the other principles you're teaching and just the relationship? If you're living with your adult children, how are those roles shifting? And if they are living out of home, or have some even married, or they are working or not working, there is a role that shifts. But it's important to remember that this is an adult to adult relationship. The other tip to think about is setting healthy boundaries. Yes, we respect their space, sometimes respecting even their space in the room, but also setting healthy boundaries from them to us. Because sometimes when we are in this adult to adult relationship, the child might at times, as when it's convenient for them, want to switch the boundaries. Today I'm an adult, don't tell me anything because I know what I'm doing. And then tomorrow I want to be a child and get all the favors of a child, of not an adult. And so sometimes those boundaries become enmeshed, to do with finances, to do with responsibilities and all that. So it's important that as parents, we set healthy boundaries. One of the lessons I've had to learn and people have talked to us about is how we offer advice. It's important that when we are in this adult to adult relationship, that we offer advice when asked. Because many times when we offer our advice, it comes across as criticism. You're criticizing my judgment. You don't trust me. Do you think I can't make this? Truly, truly, sometimes there might be indicators and reasons why you think the person can't handle whatever they are handling. But many times for adult children, advice comes across as criticism. The other thing to remember is we want to support independence by allowing them to learn from mistakes. Now, this is terrifying for any parent. If any parent would get their children and keep them to themselves and shield them from all the troubles of the world, from all the issues of the world, I think every parent would want to do that. So we are super afraid when our children need to learn from their mistakes. We are okay if they are learning and they've made a decision and things are going okay. But many times we are terrified if what they are choosing is a mistake, and we are terrified of the consequences. Truly, truly, sometimes we are older and wiser. Sometimes we might not be as wise, but there is that innate thing of wanting to shield your child from any mistake, even if you grew up learning from your own mistakes. So, this is where we want to support decision making and do not rescue. Now, there are so many instances where we want to jump in and rescue. Sometimes, if they're at uni, you almost want, or even at school, you want to fight with the teachers. Or if your child is an adult and they are married and their partner, maybe you think their partner isn't fair, you want to come in and rescue. So, these are very, very difficult things for us to grow into as parents. And I'm sure that's why we're having this conversation. But I think it's the best way to parent adult children. There are so many other tips we could talk about, but I chose a few of these to share. What are some of the reasons why adult children break contact? Now, when we dive into our subject from that broader perspective and preamble, what are some of the reasons why adult children break contact? One, gradual accumulation of pain. As we are raising our children, sometimes we raise them in ways that wound them, whether it's real or perceived. It doesn't take away the fact that they were wounded. And so sometimes they grow up with unresolved trauma, unhealed wounds. Maybe they felt you preferred the other child to them. It could be real, or it could be perceived, or it could be coming out of our own struggles as parents. Sometimes you have a child that is easy for you to send and whatever, so you keep sending them, and the other child feels that's attention for them, or you keep going with them to run errands, and eventually children accumulate pain. Or sometimes there's instability in the home and they carry the pain of what's happening between the parents. Or sometimes for us now, most of us here are believers, we do ministry, we bring people in our home, we keep displacing them from the, and they almost feel like, well, this is not their home, it's somebody else's home, or other people have priority. So there are all kinds of things that can go wrong as children are growing up. And so that gradual accumulation of pain and unhealed wounds, sometimes they distance themselves because of that and they are seeking healing. Or some of them are actually stuck. They're not seeking healing, but they just know I need to detox from this pain. The other reason might be controlling behavior. And sometimes we think because we are their parents, we are not setting proper boundaries, our behavior can come across as controlling. I don't think there is a parent that wakes up in the morning and says, I want to control my child. But sometimes parents will control children out of our own fear and insecurity. You think if I hedge them in and everything, they'll be protected from all those bad, crazy things happening out there. And then we come across as very controlling. Our boundaries are enmeshed. We are one and the same. And then, yes, I'm your mom. Yes, I'm your dad. And nothing is managing that boundary very well. So as they become adults, even in your house, they can decide, I'm going to zone out or block off and cut off contact. Or if worse still, if they're out of your home, they might say, now I need to find my own space and get back some control. So they might uh, distance themselves. Then abuse and neglect in childhood. Sometimes as parents, we go through our own issues and we we expose our children to abuse. Some of it might come to from us, the kind of language we use, the way we reprimand, the phrases we use, and they come across as abusive. But sometimes our own home environment can be a source of abuse, maybe from a close family member, and the children perceive it like, I mean, you never shielded us. You allowed everyone to, even when we told you, you chose the adult's voice over mine. And sometimes it's outright neglect. There are many, I've worked with young people for a long time in school. And sometimes as parents, we make this error. You've had children, you have older children, and you're getting tired and you're also busy. And you keep delegating your parenting role to the older children. I had a child one time ask me, am I the daughter of our firstborn? To an extent, they like it when their older siblings drop them to school or pick them and whatever. But there's an extent where they hate it when parent-teacher conference, it's the elder sister or brother that goes, visitation, and they're wondering, am I my sibling's child? So they might feel neglect. But sometimes there's outright neglect, the needs of a child, or you miss them, or for whatever reason there's neglect, or sometimes our own conflicts between husband and wife, or blended family situations, and then the children just break contact and say, when I become an adult, I'll stay as far away from these people or this one parent as I can, or from this drama. And sometimes that can cause them difference in values. I know we have quoted the scripture that in Malachi, that God brought us together one soul, and so that we might raise children that fear the Lord. We have taken them to Sunday school, and sometimes as they are becoming adults, they wander away from the faith, or their expression of the faith we know that we raised them in is different, and we can conflict in the area of values to an extent that sometimes they distance. We have so many things. And I don't want to imagine that this is just for the modern child. Maybe when we were younger in our generations, there was no expression, but sometimes you can have differing values. Some of us have exposed to our children to different cultures. They've started in international spaces, and here you are, you're telling them, don't marry somebody from here, don't do this, don't do the other. And so those differing values cause so much tension that sometimes the children say, you know what, I'll break contact because we are not agreeing in this area of values. But there are times also when they break contact, avoiding accountability. They are not making good life choices. They are dropping balls in certain areas, and they know once they come to you, you're going to. I mean, parents, sometimes we have this whole 360 check in. So, how are you doing? How are your friends? How are this? And they're thinking, I need to stay away from mom and dad because they are going to hold me accountable. It's not what we want, but sometimes children might avoid accountability and stay away till they feel either their life measures up to the standard you want, or measures up to the values, or measures up to everybody. And sometimes they're already feeling so terrible about some of the consequences of what they're doing. They're thinking, no, I don't want to come before them. Or others, they feel they've made their choices, and so let's live with it. And they might not be as concerned as you are. So they totally avoid you because they don't want accountability. One of the other areas where they avoid us is when we are asking, oh, so haven't you got anybody to marry you, to what? Every time we gather for family, you're asking about their dating life, you're asking about the next thing. So they feel this is too much, and then they might choose to go away. The other one is really creating room for individuation, establishing a distinct sense of self. In our parenting, we love our children, but sometimes we're helicopter parents. We hover too much, and they might not have that space. Or it was okay, it was healthy, but maybe they need space to step away and say, but who am I really, really? Even sometimes in naming our children, we like to pass on our family names. But as I've parented adult children, and as social media and information has come close to us, I've found that there are advantages and disadvantages of our children carrying our names. Sometimes our names work for them, family names, Other times, there's a season in which maybe they might need their own, name that's not the Kirabira name, because maybe the Kirabira name is in public for all, maybe the right reasons or even the wrong reasons. Either way, the right reasons can put so much pressure on your child, or the wrong reasons can alienate your child. So sometimes things like that, or just wanting to discover, who am I? My parents raised me like this. I want to explore and see, am I really, really standing and firm the way my parents raised me? Who am I as a person? Where do I want to go? And all that. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it can also be quite terrifying. Tips on restoring this contact. So contact is has broken. How do we bring ourselves back to restoring this contact? I seem to be running through, but hopefully I'll have a bit of time for people to ask questions so that I can really scratch where it's itching. Number one, as parents, we need to take responsibility for our role as a parent. Where did I go wrong? Where did I overextend my reach? Whether I intended or didn't intend, if we smell or get hints, or they throw a few hints there, but mom, you're too much, but dad, or you're disengaged and they're thinking, okay, you were always disengaged yourself, we must take responsibility and say, okay, now I need to grow into this shifting role. For me, I think I've had friends that have helped me, that have gone ahead of me, and have said things that have helped in growing into this changing role, which leads me to listen to understand. Listen to understand. Many times we want to jump and think, okay, what they're telling me is totally off, is totally wrong, but try to listen to understand. Yesterday, I had also a very interesting conversation with one of my young adults. Some money. Oh, mom, I made a bad decision. It was very interesting. I just said, oh, okay. What decision was that? They wanted me to bail them out before their next round of receiving money gets there. We had the conversation. Interestingly, from my heart of hearts, I wasn't upset, but I was very firm. I listened. But I was also very firm on my boundary. I said, I used humor. I said, hey, now you might have to enter a fast because you might not have sufficient to eat till your next round of upkeep is coming. But just that listening, eventually he said, oh, by the way, by even just chatting you back and forth, I think I've figured out something. I haven't asked what was figured out. I said, that's next time conversation. But I was firm that I wasn't going to send help quickly. So we talked. I'm glad I wasn't mad when I evaluated myself, but sometimes it's very, very hard to listen, to understand everything. You want to pull out your hair. You're thinking, oh no, what you're telling me is really, really not in our culture or not in our family. It doesn't happen. So to grow into that place where you hold yourself and have the courage to listen, to understand, is something that will help. And the more we listen to understand, the more we will be invited in. Respecting boundaries while keeping doors open. So if the person has withdrawn and they've broken contact, respect that boundary, but keep the doors open. Find ways you communicate that the doors are still open. I'm still mom, I'm still dad, I'm still caregiver, because we also care for others, we have many other people in our care. The door is open. You could send messages like, oh, happy birthday, hope you're doing all right. Maybe nothing too much, but expressions that show the doors are open. And also how you talk to the rest of the children and the extended family, whoever might be in contact with them indirectly. There is a way you communicate that the doors are still open. The other thing I've found, our young adults or our adult children are not breaking contact to say they no longer need parenting. So that's why we want to remain present as parents, because it's very easy to also say, these children, I raised them, whatever it is, and you close off that door of parenting. Our parenting has just shifted. Our support has shifted. The way we input in their lives has shifted, but them needing a parent hasn't shifted. I think all of us here, some of us are in a stage where we are nursing ailing parents or we have lost a parent, and we know that even if we are adults raising other young adults, we still love our parents, we still want them present. We that's the same. Our children want us. So we shouldn't stop parenting just because they broke off contact. The other issue is don't rush the process. Remember the reasons. If there was pain, if our boundaries were not clear, if we were too much, if we were too controlling, it takes a bit of time for somebody to build trust again with you as a parent. To know that actually, mom and dad now, they're open to listen genuinely. They're not manipulating me. And the next thing is their big advice and their big bang. So it takes time. It's like broken trust. In one way or another, them breaking off contact signifies that there's a level of trust that is broken, that they don't trust us to handle them as adults. So don't rush the process of restoring contact. Be present, don't stop parenting, respect boundaries, keep doors open. This is a very painful thing. That window can be tough. You're double guessing yourself. You're telling yourself, was I a good parent? Was I such a terrible parent? Sometimes it's not because you are such a terrible parent, but things happened, what you intended for good sent the wrong message. So this is where you're holding yourself, because everything within you sometimes wants to be very intrusive, but this is where you want to give the process some time and allow the other person to rebuild trust, especially if they see you listening to understand. The other tip is focus on the present. If they open up a window, don't rush to quickly dive to, so what happened last year when you people were quiet? Because sometimes focus on the present, the now that has been opened. Oh, nice. How was your day? So they've sent you a message, they've broken through. You focus on the now, because that's what buys you goodwill to later on maybe dive into some things in the past. And sometimes you might never be able to dive into the things in the past. But if you don't focus on the present, you'll close the door very, very quickly before you can permit yourself room to restore contact. So, some things to avoid: using anger that is guilt tripping. You people, we raised you. Do you know how much I suffered? Do you know how much? Do you know how much sacrifice? You, as a parent, you know your sacrifice. You know what you did to raise your child. But using anger and guilt tripping your children does not restore actually broken contact. It might escalate the situation. And that goes also with rushing the process, jumping in too quickly, coming back to actually you've not learned anything, but you've just jumped in and come back to be that kind of person. Giving unsolicited advice. One of the things when we listen to understand, our eldest son is married, and I remember having a 3 hour conversation with him, and he was excited to see me. We were driving in the car, and he was telling me about a few decisions they are making as a couple and everything. And I'm so glad that people had told me, Annette, listen, don't say much. And one of the reasons why we also don't say much, it might be your daughter or your son. One of the things I learned that, well, especially for the ones that are married, because we're not talking that not all our children are married, but the ones that are married, that have a partner, have a spouse, sometimes you're genuinely giving advice to your child that they might receive and it might work. But when they repeat it to their partner, it might come across as your mom and dad are meddling. Your mom or your dad, they are meddling. So sometimes it's best, depending on how the relationship is, you listen and then you ask, so what are you thinking about that? And your friend and your partner, your wife, your husband, what is their input? One of the conversations we had, we just had a random conversation. So, how many children do you want? one of them wanted more and the other less. And when they told me, I said, oh, so I smiled. I just said, well, when you have number one, you will kind of know whether you want all the others or you want fewer. And I left it at that because they might go back and say, you know what, my mom said things are whatever you said. And the other person is thinking, oh, okay, that's what your mom said. Oh, okay, that's what your dad said. Not because you meant it to be wrong, but just drawing them out and saying, oh, okay, what do you think and whatever. And after some time, they might say, but mom, really, really, what's your position on this thing? Or dad, what's your position on this thing? Now they have just invited you in to give your advice. Or you might want to ask and say, do you mind if I spoke into that subject, or do you mind a bit of perspective from me? And sometimes, depending on the space they're in, they might say, no, mom, no, dad, you're going to start those things of you people. There, just know. Or sometimes they might say, okay, what do you think? And when you offer it, it's not a must that they should take your advice. But if the relationship is healthy, they might not take your advice the first time, and if something happens, they might come back and say, Mom, Dad, please explain that thing again. What were you trying to say? And you're thinking, okay, you already hit some bad thing, but now it gives you more opportunity to input their process and their decisions. So this area of unsolicited advice is one of those very, very delicate. You can really, sometimes because you're outside their life and you're not even emotionally entangled with the issue, you can see it more objectively. But you need to give them that time and that opportunity and package your words in ways they can receive your advice. But you people, I told you, da, 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 da. But you might say, have you considered? Have you considered? And build on to some of the other principles you've been teaching them over time. The last point I want to make before we open it up for questions is demanding explanations. When you're restoring a relationship where there was broken contact, you don't want to start by saying, so you people, why were you disengaging? What has been going on? Demanding explanations too early will close the door very, very quickly. So sometimes we jump in, we want to know. Everything within you wants to understand where your child was coming from. But remain in the present, build enough rapport and trust. And maybe they might say, but you know what, mom, that thing again you've started, and you might get the hint. Or you know what, dad, that issue. So you might get the hint. And maybe after some time they're stable, your relationship is stable, they might say, I felt I was a disappointment. I wasn't measuring up. I was still trying to figure out this. My academics were down, the grades were down. I didn't know how to face you, so I protected myself. That might come out. Or other times they might say, Mom, you were always right. And when I discovered my life was off the hooks, I said, no. And then you're getting the explanation. So don't demand explanation too quickly, because remember, some is real, some is perceived. And that way you'll open up your heart. So as parents, even as we hurt in these processes, our children discovering themselves, individuating, managing their traumas, I think that's where we need the support of other people. Definitely for us in this space, we are prayer people. You don't stop praying, because I've seen prayer open up opportunities for you to engage with your child, or prayer bringing other people, like-minded people, sharing the same message you would have shared with your child with them without you being the one giving the unsolicited advice. I'll stop sharing and back to you, David.
Wow.
Back to you, David.
Thank you so much, Doctor. Yes, I hope you can hear me.
Yes, I do. I hear you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Doctor. Great wealth of knowledge. Wow. This is the time where you take notes and begin realizing that when you mark yourself against what you've been saying, you begin giving yourself marks. and the results come out instantly, and you realize that yeah, you have a journey. But thank you so much for the great insights. Um, the total typical African parent normally has a way they have been brought up, and it totally contradicts with many of these things. But I thank you so much. Using anger to guilt strip, uh, unsolicited advice. We're normally very generous with that. Be okay with not your advice not being taken. Ex- tell me what exactly happened. Demanding explanations. All these things are happen to us, and I think it's just culture, and these are things that we have to unlearn and then relearn the new format. No, thank you so much, Doctor. Just looking in the chat. Um, Great learning. It's a gradual process. Thank you for addressing this topic. That is indeed a growing concern. Very nice seeing you, my friend. That is from Auntie Winfred. You have brought this out wonderfully. You have put good words into my thoughts. That is the appreciation. A number of thank yous coming through. Uh, yes, Doctor, thank you. Thank you so much. Is maybe um I'll ask the first question. Um, what age do we start looking at the children as adults? Is it from the teen age or is it at 18? At what point do we begin having this adult to adult conversation?
Thank you so much, David. I think from earlier on, we are raising young adults. I think if we thought about it earlier when they are younger, we would do it better. I don't want to pretend I did that. We need to keep reminding ourselves that this child is 8, they are 12, but one day they'll be 20, they'll be above 18, they'll be 30, they'll be 35. So we need to start age appropriately. That's our thinking, so that when we are training up, when we are depositing, I like to think that our conversations with our children are deposits. They are seeds that the Holy Spirit will water and they'll germinate and grow. So sometimes we start late, but also with a teenager, hinting on certain things, levels of responsibility, their rights, because just because your child turned 18 doesn't mean they're prepared for adulthood, because you're also still going to hold them accountable. As much as we don't want to be tiptoeing around our children, we don't want to be walking on eggshells. We are still mom, we are still dad, but I think sometimes we prepare them too late and demand certain things suddenly. Yet we did form gradually, age appropriately, teaching them independence, teaching them money habits, especially if we're going to set boundaries on finances. As I told you, a young adult might want to be adult because they want to go out and everything. But when you want to hold them accountable on issues of money and responsibility, then they want to be 12. They can't have it both ways. But before you throw them the deep end and they are handling money and whatever, how have we been teaching them, for example, money and everything, to get to the point where when they are adults, they are managing their money well? So the conversations are not starting when you're 23, when you're 25. I think if we still have opportunity with our young children, we are depositing timeless truths, we are depositing principles, we are letting them try out age appropriately, even when they are teenagers. All this is preparing them now for adulthood. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah. And then we begin to let go of certain things, curfews, and a certain understanding without violating the principles that govern your home and the space in which you've raised them. Yes.
Yes, it does answer the question. Thank you, Doctor. There's a question in the chat or a comment. I have a friend whose wife kept assuring the hubby that her dad is her best friend and hence can never make any decision without her dad. How do you guide them? Then how do we create a safe emotional space for conversation to prevent the issue in the long run? Those are the two questions on the chat.
I think even biblically, parents, we still honor and respect our parents. But once we have a spouse, certain allegiances shift. Now, there'll be significant, important people in your life as a person. I, for one, my husband is a significant, important person when I'm making certain decisions. My dad is. But usually, before I go to my dad, and also it depends on what stage. For instance, when I was switching careers, because this is a career my dad had paid school fees for. So I was switching from engineering and going into psychology. I felt it was important for him to know about my switch because he was part of the engineering bit. Now, when I was going to do my PhD in organizational leadership, I didn't have that kind of conversation. And I'm very close to my dad and everything. But I didn't have that. I didn't think it was his place to discuss its organization or whatever. That I discussed with my husband because we've been doing life together. He was seeing the transitions. I was making decisions. I was sensing what God was saying. Now, my dad knew I was going to do a PhD, but the level of conversation and input in the decision was very, very different. Right now, I'm starting a new transition. My dad is absolutely outside that transition. He will know about it, but my husband is. So there are seasons in life where your parent might still have a lot of maybe input, but usually when we leave our parents, they are good, they love us. You want to check in with your partner, and even now, for me, as a mother of a young adult, yes, he's my son, but I must be very intentional to ask him, what does your wife think about that thing? Then I can bring my opinion. Second to his wife's. And if I need to tweak or whatever, but he needs to know that now his wife, yes, as parents, he knows us, he knows we might be giving him very good advice, but he needs to transition also to know that now the other person, they are on the same team, and me and my husband are on our team, and we can still input. So creating that safe space, I think that person's wife hasn't understood how this dynamic is, but also that tells you something about the quality of their relationship might need to be examined, because we do a gradual thing to gravitate to our spouses and everything. And when it's going well and it's healthy, we stick there. When there is a bit of insecurity there, we might run back to the safe man who was our father, who we had a good relationship with. So they might have to explore a number of things, and also the wife might need to be guided. I don't know how much the parent has also enabled that, because sometimes as parents we feel nice and we're enabling our children, but we're enabling them in the wrong things. So I think those are some of the areas I can say. It's not just one linear thing.
Thank you, Doctor. Yeah, that I guess answers the question. Maybe as another question comes in, I just wondering. You said we should give them, we should support their independence, and give them an opportunity to learn from their mistakes. What happens if you, as a parent who has seen more years than them, sees that the mistake is going to come at a very high price, and you are advising and they are not getting it, and you don't want to really get controlling or become too much? What do you do in such a situation? You let them
That's
pay
the
that price?
that's the most terrifying thing, because you know you can see the sky is crashing. They're in debt and sinking in debt, and you're not going to bail out, and there's that loan shark and that loan shark. Let's use that example. Honestly, you have spoken, you have guided. It's very, very hard to watch your loved one crash. But sometimes it's what it is. You've spoken. So for us who are Christians, we pray. We pray that the mercies of the Lord will prevail, that the crash won't be too devastating, and that if the opportunity surfaces, we can speak, or that God will bring other people in our children's lives to speak into them. It's tough. It's really, really tough. It's painful for you as a parent because you know you're older, you've been there, maybe you've done that, or you've seen other people that have done that. So it's terrifying. And I'm not sitting here to say any of these things is it's a walkover. So it takes courage to hold back. It takes a lot of courage and just prayer and social support sometimes. Of course, this is not the time to go to the entire family and tell everybody you're breaching confidentiality, and that will even continue bringing that separation. But you can find somebody, you tell them, I am dying. My heart is breaking. Please hold space with me. You might not even get into the detail of the issue. I just feel that decision is going to be catastrophic and I have spoken and whatever. I don't know what else to do. If they find a solution with you, well and good. If not, they hold space for you until that wave passes. And the wave is not a one-day wave sometimes. It can be years, months. It's the tough thing. But when we think about us, I don't know how many decisions we've made and our parents were holding their breath. So I don't think we're also very wiser, much wiser than our parents. But sometimes we forget that we also caused them a lot of sleepless nights and all those things. So that's what I can answer, David.
Thank you, doctor. It's a tough one, that one, yeah, but yeah,
Very,
we can
very
only
tough.
pray, yeah, we can only pray and take the advice as you said. Hopefully they don't crash and yes.
Yeah, it is.
There is a question. Somebody saying, what do you do with an 18-year-old son who fails to give accountability of his school results? Hmm, okay.
18-year-old failing to give accountability for school results? That one, I'm going to the school. There are no two ways about it. That one, I'm getting up and going to the school,
You're paying the
especially if
school
it's
fee.
still high school. Because,
Yes.
yeah, there should be value for money. I need to find out. I'll come, I'll find the lecturers. I'll violate your boundary because you've not met me halfway. So if you're not wanting to present your results, if you're not that one, I'm not going to. We can even make other changes because they're age appropriate, and there is there is young adult, there is adult. But if they're still in your care, you're still paying fees. Because I also know sometimes 18 has gone to university, and if they've gone to university outside Uganda, some universities have policy. But I've had enough friends around that have actually gone to a university in the UK and they've confronted and they've written and they've signed and they've said, I will get a copy of these fees as of these results as long as I'm the one paying the tuition. But if they're senior six, as you've said, I will walk to the school, we will face each other, and we'll talk about it. And then we see if they're not trying to give the results. Now, the other challenging one, if they are not exerting effort and you're telling them the consequences of not passing the papers and everything, that can really, really be difficult because you can't exert effort for your child. You can't read for them, you can't do papers for them. You might support, give textbooks, give teachers to support, but you can't do the heavy lifting for them. And that's where now we'll wait for the result to determine. And usually we tell our children when the results come out, they're yours. The only thing you actually ever own in this life that is really, really yours are your credentials. Because even your heir can't say, oh, this person had straight A's, please give me a job. So we usually use those jokes and whatever. And sometimes when somebody comes to face, they're an A student, but now they come face to face with F's at the end of senior six. That is the other difficult consequence. And, you know, it's a tough one. And then again, as parents, you have to come together and regroup and say, do we just get so mad and say we won't pay for them? Or we cry and whatever, and then get them back to redo the stage and see if we can salvage something. Because also, psychological maturity and chronological age can be very different. Because 18, but really sometimes your 18-year-old speaks and sometimes they sound an adult and other times you're thinking, Bambi. They are still psychologically immature.
Thank you, doctor. Thank you. Thank you, doctor. Thank you, friends, for your questions. I do not see any other questions in the chat. Um, when asked, he said he wants his freedom and left home to go to. Okay, I don't understand what this means. When asked, he said he wants his freedom and left home to go to my stepmother. Okay, I think, but you've answered that. You've answered that. I guess it's relating that previous question.
Yeah, it's
Doctor, thank you
hard.
so
You need to
much.
keep the
Yes,
doors open. It's painful in that situation. Keep the doors open and we'll see what happens.
yes. And the freedom shouldn't take away from your part of being still being a parent who has to remind them and discipline them appropriately.
Yes, and also
Yeah.
co-parent. If you have other voices they respect, they can help. You don't parent alone. Not the whole world,
Ah,
but a few, yeah.
okay. Doctor, thank you so much. I know you have already spoken, but I still want to give you one more thing to do for us. You're passionate about this topic. You have taught us, you've given us great insights. And there are parents out there who are battling with the idea of parenting their young adults and their children who are also on the call, not children, young adults who are on the call who are struggling with this relationship with their parents and want their independence, but also want to be children at the same time, want to make good decisions and also learn from their bad ones and put in context all the things that we have talked about. So I'd like to request you to kindly